Hey there, everyone. Very good afternoon to you all. Charles here, FRGNT Daily Chart Analysis. The time is 3:30 local time here in Milan, and it's Tuesday, the 28th of July, 2026. A very good afternoon to you all. As I always say, where to start? And the simple answer is just from the top. So it's been, I'll admit, it feels like quite a fun trading day. And more often than not, we say trading shouldn't be fun, but why should it not be? I mean, we're investing our own capital, we're investing other people's investments. Why should we make it feel like a job? Today feels like fun. Points of interest are holding to expectation. We are seeing the breaks of potential points of interest that we had an inclination about. And to be honest, it just feels like a game of timing today, a game of choice, a game of weighing up what looks better in terms of correlation and confluence. So I will go through positions that I missed today, a position that I took today that I'm currently active short in, and a take profit that was hit. So we'll go with Gbcad. So Gbcad, I most certainly missed that position today without any shadow of a doubt. There's a couple of mitigating factors why I missed that position, one of which was I slept through my alert. It is what it is. When you wake up extremely early to do your daily chart analysis, then from time to time you'll take a nap during the day like a child, and you'll miss one of your best looking investments. It is what it is, unfortunately. So if I bring us to all the higher time frames, we can absolutely understand why I was looking to take, let's call it, a potential long position from the lows. We're refining that weekly order block down, refined within that weekly order block. If I put that on all intervals for you to have a look, that's the weekly order block. Then if I go back, you'll see how within the weekly order block we have the daily order block. Price is respecting it beautifully. Yesterday's daily candle rejected the daily 50 MA towards the upside as well. I'm very much so bullish from this particular point of interest. Then when I continue to refine that area down, refine through weekly, daily, and now we're onto the 4-hour time frame. That is where I'm looking at basic price action and structure to see exactly what's going on. And within the equilibrium of the daily and the weekly order block, we have that beautiful 4-hour order block as well. And then I want to really understand what has gone on from that particular 4-hour order block. And you can see the tremendous wallop that was created from that 4-hour order block by way of we won't call it a most recent high, but a high was certainly created from that 4-hour order block. So price then eventually returned along the way, leaving the 4-hour 50 MA behind and respecting it to the downside. We've come into that 4-hour order block. We've had a reaction from that 4-hour order block, and we've come back down. That's the confirmation that more often than not I'd be looking to seek on the lower time frame. So I was very much so in the market looking for Gbcad long positions from that point of interest. So to even begin the bias from there, as I said initially, it was all about timing and all about when to take that type of position. So when we start to go down for the lower time frames, I think this is where I most certainly missed that position. Refined within the higher time frame points of interest and also that 4-hour order block, we had a session low, which price was respecting at some point, but we failed to make a higher high. So ultimately, yes, it is a session low, but we haven't done too much. Of course, we're breaking our own structure points on the way up. But if you look at the bigger picture by way of here's a low in the market, and then we fail to make a higher high, so therefore this could just be that lower high for a potential lower low. So we've come back into that session low, and from the session low, more often than not, I will need to see confirmation. I didn't have my confirmation from the session low, so I wasn't able to take a long position from this session low. But what we'll see is just directly under that 4-hour order block to the left-hand side, I highlighted a 15-minute order block. And the reason for that is, well, it's the only 15-minute order block that is available within that leg extension. So remember on the 4-hour, we gave that extension. So we can now select this 15-minute order block and say, well, but for that 15-minute order block, the price action above may never have happened. Now, what I'm then looking to do is understand, well, why would price want to gravitate towards that 50-minute order block, and why should I be aggressive when price gets into that 50-minute order block? Now, we trade order block, or I trade order blocks. So my interpretation of an order block, well, not so much my interpretation, but what I would expect to happen from an order block is rejection. So the fact that when price came back down into that 4-hour order block, and tapped into the 15-minute order block, we only had around, I remember it clearly, around about 22 minutes to reject that 4 hour order block. So ultimately, we're looking for liquidity beyond that 4 hour order block to then reject that 4 hour order block to the highs. Now, I understand the potential targets could be back up to that 4 hour 50 MA, but we also must understand what the intraday perspective price action is doing. We are making lower lows. This is potentially a lower high for what could have been a lower low continuation. So the fact of the matter is, I believe I should have been a lot more aggressive taking that position. And probably I would have been, but for not being asleep. But then again, I probably would have wanted to await some confirmation by way of order block selection. And that has now led me on to take a Gbpcad short. So my confirmation would have been, okay, well, we've tapped into that 15-minute order block. I didn't take the limit order. I didn't take the tap order long. So therefore, my confirmation has kind of been confirmed if I want to look to take a long position from that area. I would have preferred to the fact that I didn't recognize what had gone on. I was late to the chart. By the time I actually saw Gbpcad move, it was this alert that actually kind of woke me up, if we can say. It wasn't the alert of price actually moving down into that 15-minute order block. So by the time I got to price has already moved. So straight away I selected the order block as a result of that bullish engulfing candle, order block selection, and I really wanted price to just come back in, and I would have taken that long position 10 times out of 10 every day of the week, and as I say, twice on Sundays. So with that said, I had to let that trade go. I couldn't jump on that. It had been well and truly missed. As you can see, absolutely no pullback. We just flew from that session. Well, we call it a session low, but the liquidity beyond the session low by way of 15-minute order block. And off we went. So my other type of strategy, 15-minute time frame only. I'm looking to understand, well, what's going on that 15-minute time frame. On the 15-minute time frame, we are making, let's call it a low, lower high, lower low was created. We'll look to the left. We most certainly have made a new low in the market. And it's now down to me to understand, well, where has that lower low come from by way of order block? So this was now my second dilemma. Do I look to take this position as a result of I would have taken this or I could have taken this position as a limit order? Do I await confirmation on Gbpcad shorts, or do I take that immediately? Now, in comparison, I had the same alternative on GU. A snap to the lows where we can see price action was making lower lows, lower highs, lower low. Now, where did that lower low come from? Now, the dilemma that I had was ultimately, this morning I was waiting for price to come up to this area, structure point in the market, of which created, we could say, a recent low. Price had no reason, well, price did not think to come back up to that area. I mean, it certainly tried, but I didn't get into that area at all. Price didn't go into that 15-minute order block, and we melted beyond before getting to that. So therefore, my dilemma was, well, if I'm going to take a Gbpcad short based on a snap and a retest, what about GU? So the dilemma I had with GU, well, where can I put my stop loss? I mean, here would have been great, but also here would have played a big part in my, I won't say psychology, but straight away I'd be entering a trade where I can quite clearly see a definite reason to lose by not putting my stop loss in the place where I really believe price should have gone to this morning. Now, with that said, I wasn't willing to trust that order block and not think about the order block above. And based on my risk reward ratio, by stretching that order block, I wasn't happy to take that position. So therefore, I reverted to Gbpcad. And as I said, it may have well have been a limit order. It was just the timing in terms of my decision making. And pretty much doing that, I was stretching my stop loss on GU to see if it would make sense, stretching my stop loss on Gbpcad to see where I would like to put that stop loss. And of course, you guys all know I trade Asia ranges, so I had every thought process to protect this Asia range that was very much so still available after taking liquidity beyond the Asia lows. Of course, my thought process was, well, what about if Asia highs were then taken? I'd be liquidated out of that position. So I trusted this order block, but I also put my stop loss in a very safe position. Of course, the risk to reward ratio, you can see, is not my favored, but it's a position nonetheless. And what I plan to do is actually I believe the better position that I would really want to take based on my higher time frame directional bias would actually be a long from this area. So I'm happy to collect 2% on the way back down. if price is going to play that way, in line for me then to take a position to the upside that I would then be looking to have my take profit towards that 4-hour 50 EMA. I would have loved price if price didn't give me an opportunity to take this and we just flew straight through. Then I would have loved price to have broken towards the upside. Then most certainly on the 15-minute time frame we would have had a break or structure to the upside, then pull back into the 15-minute order block that created that break, and then I'll be looking to stretch profits to that 4-hour 50 EMA. At the moment, by the time when price gets back down, because we've had that first initial move, this is not going to be, it's difficult for me to say right now, but I'll be down on the lower time frames. I'll be down on the 1 minute time frame when price gets down to that alert, and I'll be looking to execute as and when I see my entry criteria on the lower time frames. There's also a potential for a limit order, but I'll have to see in terms of correlation. What's UCAD doing? What's the DXY doing? How are we looking? So that's that really. That's the missed position, I'd say. But it happens from time to time. That's the position that I'm currently in. We'll move that to break even at some point shortly. Let's drag that alert back up here. And then really the only hold up I see will be down at these lows in terms of the imbalance that has been created as a result of the move from the highs. Now, another position taken today was AUD US dollar long. I like that position, to be honest. Another good looking type of session low type of position we had on the 4-hour time frame, where price was clearly being held down at these lows. If you look at my crosshair on that 4-hour time frame and then move your eyes up to the top left hand chart, you can see exactly where we are. So key structure point on the 4-hour time frame. Look to the right hand chart, you can see we're at the absolute lows of a daily range as well. So therefore I have every reason to believe that we could look for a reaction from that area. Now, with that said, I was looking to understand when is the best time. Again, it's all about timing. When is the best time to look for a position? So this illustration was placed on the chart this morning, and we broke down an aggressive type of entry here on the 1 minute time frame that was very much so available. I didn't take that, mind you, as you can see, a little bit before my desired time of entry. Therefore, if I'm not going to wait for London to open, I really want to take a concrete type of position, nothing too aggressive before London. Call it what you want, call it a little bit of fear, call it I'm not used to trading that those times either. I'm happy to do my market analysis, but I'm also happy to put my phone and my trading platform to one side before looking to execute a position. But we went through it nevertheless, and it would have been a very nice position. As you can see, 1 to 3 would have been easily captured. So nevertheless, you can see by my illustrations here, I was up and down through the time frames into the 15, beyond that into the 5, and then down onto the 1 minute, where I think it really made all the good sense to look at that position. So this is the 1 minute time frame. I'll try not to go into too much detail and bore you all, but essentially the session low was holding, key point number 1. The 15-minute order block, which is here, also holding, key point number 2. Then we're looking to identify, do we have any breaks of structure? We can see we had a push towards the upside. That certainly broke structure. And then left behind, what did we have? We had a nice 5-minute order block. So let me bring you to the 5-minute for you to have a look at that 5-minute order block. Here was that 5-minute order block, just here to the left-hand side. Then price came back down into that 5-minute order block. And then at some point, we did break below it. But before we had broken below that 5-minute order block, I had done one thing a little bit further. I went down to the 1 minute time frame to try and understand, well, can I put a cherry on top of the cake by way of price action breaking to those highs and then looking to execute that position? So I was already in the market looking to take that long position. It was all about confirmation, i.e. when do I believe AU is ready for that move towards the upside. When we came back down into that 5-minute order block, we then had a nice, if I use that, break of immediate structure. It left us behind with a 1 minute order block, which then I was looking to execute. You can see how I was micromanaging that chart to understand whether or not I'm going to be caught offside. I was analyzing the DXY as well to analyze whether or not I was going to be caught offside. But it was a good, well, I'll say an okay to good trade nevertheless. And if we go to the 15-minute now, in terms of my management, I used the imbalance in the opposite direction. Why? Well, because it absolutely made sense to do so. If we have a look at this right now, here was an area in the market where price is failing to break above, well, certainly to break above. We simply couldn't get it. This 15-minute order block that was left behind, we had an initial break, I suppose. here was what really tempted me into the position. But if I'm talking about a clean break towards the upside, we certainly didn't get that. Therefore, this was my inclination to go down to the lower time frames and see if you can get a nice looking entry on those lower time frames. Now, on the way back down, guess what? We left imbalance on the 15-minute time frame, and straight away, that's where I felt best pleased to take my profits out of the market. So that's that really for AU. A lot going on the lower time frames that I will be happy to go into great detail to those of you that want to listen to my breakdowns. So that's pretty much it, to be honest, team. GU was the consideration. Gbcad was what I took short. AU was the long position, and I can now see that rolling back towards the downside, potentially just hover around that key structure area. Or, to be honest, by my forecast, I have every anticipation that at some point we're just going to give a nice bearish 4-hour candle below, and then the structure will be broken. We're looking at the low, potential pullback into the lower high. We can then start to trust that 4-hour 50 EMA, put some order blocks in there as well by way of 4-hour order blocks that will then be available, and then refine that area down. Let's see where that's going to come out now. Yeah, it looks good for a refinement in terms of a snap and a retest, a very similar looking position that I just took on Gbcad. So you see it now. Price, we were making lower lows into the lower high, lower low confirmed, which confirms the lower high, 15-minute order block left behind, price pull up, and then look for that short position down. As soon as, of course, we get the confirmation on the higher time frame, which would be a 4-hour candle closure below, which of course then would be price making a little bit more of a break to the downside and then the pull up. So that's the forecast. That's how I forecast price action on a daily basis. That's what gives me my bias, and that's how I can trade with confidence, as well as using the confluence. It's always good to trade with confidence. We see that push up on the DXY. With that said, we're simply pushing into the highs of that daily order block to really balance the market. What I do want to see is a just daily candle close above that daily order block for me to flip my bias upside down, get rid of that daily order block, place an order block in the opposing direction, and then have the confirmation that we're now higher high, look for the higher low before that higher high continuation. So that's what we've got at the moment. The fact that we're breaking above those highs on the 4-hour time frame, I think it would just be really good for the DXY to just have that daily closure above that order block, and then we can move on with a bit of DXY weakness coming out of that area. So anyhow, that's that for now. Try to speed my voice, keep it as quick as I possibly can, but I hope it makes good sense, team. Thank you very much for your time, your patience as always, and your support across the channels. I really do appreciate it, and you'll hear from me soon, with whether that's with good news or with bad. Take care, Charles.